Today was Sir Keir Starmer's worst day as Prime Minister. He's currently so toxic that polonium looks at him and runs away.
Imagine a leader who has barely settled into power yet is already confronting a dramatic and unsettling collapse in public trust. Someone who ventured into the heartland hoping to reconnect with disillusioned voters, only to find himself confronted and exposed by the very people he aimed to win over. What unfolds when the carefully polished image of a political redeemer fractures in real time, leaving behind unanswered questions, broken expectations, and promises that now ring hollow? The political ground is shifting beneath everyone's feet, and the tremors are rippling across the country. From the Red Wall communities to the corridors of Westminster, a deepening sense of doubt is taking hold as voters ask harder questions about who genuinely speaks for them, who truly understands their daily struggles, and who can ultimately be trusted to shape their future. This moment goes far beyond policy disagreements. It cuts to the core issues of authenticity, credibility, and the very soul of what political leadership is supposed to represent.
The latest poll put Reform about 10 points ahead, and he's lost the Red Wall. So his team of crack advisors said, go to the Red Wall, win them back, slag off Nigel Farage. They'll love that, Sir Keir. Here's what happened.
I've got Peter from The Guardian.
Do you think one of the problems is that Nigel Farage can approximate talking like a human being, where you just resort to talking points and dodging questions?
He's lost The Guardian.
Reform UK say you're running scared of them, that you're sounding increasingly like them with some of the policies and announcements you've made recently. This is a speech that was very defensive, wasn't it?
He's lost Sky News.
Let me go to Chris Hope. Chris
Hope, GB News. Prime Minister Nigel Farage has 5 MPs. You've got 403. Are you panicking because Reform is so far ahead in the polls, it seems? Is he living rent-free in your brain? You went to a state school. Your dad worked in a factory. Your mum worked in the NHS. So why has a public school-educated former city trader got more in common with the Red Wall than you have?
The sheer audacity of Keir Starmer's team sending him straight into the Red Wall, the very constituencies Labour supposedly lost touch with, only for him to be mercilessly torn apart by the press, stands as a stunning example of political miscalculation. The Guardian, Sky News and GB News all went for him without restraint, and one journalist summed it up perfectly by asking whether Starmer is simply incapable of speaking like a normal human being when placed next to Nigel Farage. This wasn't merely a rough media appearance, it felt like a public execution. He appeared visibly shell-shocked, boxed in, and utterly out of his depth. How can any leader claim to understand the working class when he's greeted with such open hostility, even from outlets that once offered him an easy ride? The real question now isn't just whether he's panicking, but whether he even grasps why his support is slipping away in the first place.
He's got Nigel Farage living rent-free in his head, and just in case he wasn't absolutely sure, he's being told how unpopular he is.
The speed of the decline in your popularity is historically unprecedented. Isn't this speech today an admission that you have failed and Nigel Farage understands voters better than you?
The repeated mentions of Nigel Farage by Keir Starmer, captured in a brutal clip of him saying Farage's name over and over again, expose a far deeper strategic failure than Labour seems willing to admit. Matthew Laza's instant reaction, he's rattled, isn't he, says more than any extended analysis ever could. While some Labour MPs may have welcomed the aggressive posture and thought he was finally coming out swinging, this wasn't fighting at all. It was obsessive name-dropping, paired with a weak and unconvincing attack, claiming Farage's plans are unfunded or merely about tearing down a few pride flags. Instead of laying out a compelling vision for the country, Starmer turned Farage into the central figure of his speech, elevating him rather than diminishing him, and making him appear more significant than ever. Why would a Prime Minister hand that much airtime to a political rival, effectively validating his relevance and reinforcing the very threat he claims to oppose?
You went into the election promising to freeze national insurance and keep the two-child benefit cap. You've since raised national insurance on businesses and now you're considering axing the cap. Isn't attacking Nigel Farage's economic credibility a bit rich?
Yikes. And then, after all that, he has the temerity to say that he's more trustworthy than Nigel Farage.
And that's the question you have to ask about Nigel Farage. Can you trust him? Can you trust him with your future?
Keir Starmer's attempt to paint Nigel Farage as economically untrustworthy backfired spectacularly, and the irony was exposed in real time by the very journalist who raised the issue. You went into the election promising to freeze national insurance and keep the two-child benefit cap, only to later raise national insurance on businesses, and now openly consider scrapping the cap. So isn't questioning Farage's economic credibility a little rich? This wasn't a minor slip or an awkward moment. It felt like a clear betrayal of trust. Starmer lectured the country about unfunded spending, while his own commitments were visibly collapsing around him. Pensioners, farmers, business owners, and anyone who cares about financial stability and honest governance must be watching this unfold with growing disbelief. How can he seriously ask the public to trust him with their future, their jobs, or their mortgages when his word appears to carry so little weight? This goes beyond policy missteps and talking points. It strikes at the very foundation of his leadership and his credibility.
Pensioners, farmers, business owners, people who care about not giving away British sovereign territory, people who pay energy bills, the disabled, private school parents, just some of the people who might feel as though Sir Keir Starmer hasn't been entirely honest with them in his first 10 months as PM. And all he's got now is to try and say how working class he is.
Like Nigel Farage, I know what it's like growing up in a cost of living crisis. I know what it's like when your family can't pay the bills, when you fear the postman and the bills that may be brought.
A former Labour Party advisor, Matthew Lazar, has openly admitted his shock at how suddenly the press has turned on Keir Starmer, acknowledging that for much of Starmer's premiership, and even before he became Prime Minister, the media had been remarkably gentle with him. As Lazar put it, the treatment he witnessed in that room marked a complete reversal of how Starmer had been handled up until now. A confession that feels quietly devastating in its honesty. Starmer enjoyed a prolonged free ride, and now the gloves appear to be off. If this level of scrutiny continues, Lazar believes Starmer's position could genuinely be at risk. This wasn't just a rough appearance or an off day, it signalled a deeper shift in how the political establishment views him. The weight of expectations combined with internal party pressure over issues like the two-child benefit cap is beginning to close in. The question now is whether the media has finally awakened to the reality of his leadership, or whether this moment marks the opening salvo of a sustained and unforgiving assault.
Look, nothing screams being in touch with the public like delivering a series of speeches in secure, sterile locations surrounded by security. He can't go and meet working class people because this happens.
That man is not allowed in my pub. Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub.
The sheer cringe-worthiness of Keir Starmer's attempts to present himself as a working-class hero is genuinely staggering. Declaring that he knows what it's like to grow up in a cost-of-living crisis, to fear the bills dropping through the letterbox, sounds painfully rehearsed when it's delivered from secure, sanitist venues surrounded by security detail. This carefully manufactured empathy rings hollow because it feels performed rather than lived, scripted rather than earned. It isn't the grit, realism or raw authenticity the Red Wall expects, it's political pantomime dressed up as sincerity. The ultimate indictment came in the viral clip of a pub owner shouting, "That man is not allowed in my pub." Get out of my pub. Go on. Get out of my pub. That moment wasn't just a bad look or an awkward encounter. It was a brutal symbol of his total disconnect from the very people he claims to understand. What kind of leader needs security to meet the public and then ends up being thrown out of a pub by them?
So I'm the opposite. I'm completely surprised that the press have turned on him. One of the features, I believe, of Starmer's premiership and before he was Prime Minister is that the press have been very, very gentle with him, very gentle. And what went on in that room today, I thought, was a complete reversal of where they've been up till now. If they keep that pressure on, I think he could go. The problem with having so many MPs is that they can form really big clumps and come after him. And with a two-child benefit situation, I think he could be in trouble. And with the winter fuel, you've seen where it is. I think everybody now is hounding him.
Shah drops a political bombshell, arguing that up until now, reform has been a Tory problem, something that only threatened the Conservatives. But that is no longer the case, because it is now becoming a direct threat to Labour as well. This isn't simply about Reform UK eating into Conservative votes anymore. It points to a far deeper realignment in British politics. While some are quick to frame this as disastrous for the Tory party, that concern is rapidly eclipsed by the far more unsettling realisation that Labour is now squarely in the firing line. What happens when the old left-right divide begins to blur and a populist force like Reform UK starts pulling in disillusioned Labour voters? And so we arrive at the bigger picture, a leader in crisis, laid bare by his own strategic errors and a profound disconnect from the people he claims to represent. The red wall is seething, the media has turned hostile, and a populist outsider is gaining momentum. Living rent-free in the Prime Minister's head, Keir Starmer's attempts to style himself as a man of the people have been systematically dismantled, exposing a stark and uncomfortable truth. Authenticity now matters more than ever. The question is no longer just whether he can rebuild trust, but whether the public has already passed its verdict. Is this the beginning of the end? Or can he somehow pull off a last-minute escape? Only time will tell, but one thing is undeniable. The political landscape has been permanently reshaped, and the battle for the soul of the nation has only just begun. What do you think? Has Starmer already sealed his political fate? Let us know in the comments below. Shah drops a political bombshell, arguing that up until now, reform had been a Tory problem, something that threatened only the Conservatives. But that era is over, because it is now becoming a direct and serious threat to Labour as well. This is no longer just about Reform UK nibbling at Conservative votes, it signals a much deeper realignment in British politics. While some are quick to frame this as disastrous for the Tory party, that concern is increasingly overshadowed by the far more unsettling realisation that Labour itself is now firmly in the firing line. What happens when the traditional left-right divide starts to blur and a populist force like Reform UK begins siphoning off disillusioned Labour voters? This brings us to the wider picture, a leader in crisis, exposed by his own strategic missteps and a profound disconnect from the people he claims to represent. The red wall is seething, the media has turned hostile, and a populist outsider is gaining momentum. Living rent-free in the Prime Minister's head, Keir Starmer's attempts to cast himself as a man of the people have been systematically torn apart, revealing an uncomfortable truth: authenticity matters more than ever. The question is no longer simply whether he can rebuild trust, but whether the public has already delivered its verdict. Is this the beginning of the end? Or can he somehow pull off a last-minute escape? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: the political landscape has been irrevocably altered, and the battle for the soul of the nation has only just begun. What do you think? Has Starmer already sealed his political fate? Let us know in the comments below.